Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the unsolved disappearance of William Tyrrell, a 3-year-old little boy that went missing from Australia in 2014 from his grandmother's back garden. I'd just like to let you know, I mean no disrespect to anyone I talk about today. I've just gathered this information off the internet and compiled it into a video for educational purposes. William Tyrrell was born on the 26th of June in 2011. He was just a lovely little boy who enjoyed doing what kids do, playing with toys, dressing up as his favourite characters. He was a genuinely little cheeky boy who would love to pretend that he was a builder. He was also this huge Spider-Man fan, so he had all the toys, he had all the outfits, he had all the clothes, and he just absolutely loved this character. He and his older sister, who I believe was around about the age of 5, were in foster care, and they lived in Sydney. William was such a vivacious, playful, funny little boy that was just full of smiles and full of life. It was on the 11th of September in 2014 when his parents decided that they were going to surprise the kids by picking them up early from daycare to take them to their grandmother's house. So the grandmother lived in Kendal and they lived in Sydney, so they packed up, they got prepared for the 4-hour journey all the way from Sydney to Kendal so that they could go and see their grandmother. She lived in a very small town on a street called Bennerine Drive, which was actually directly facing Kendal State Forest. This area is very quiet, it's very secluded and surrounded by trees and things like that, and surrounded by nature. But by all accounts, it had a really low crime rate, so it was quite a happy and safe place to live in. Kind of the place where, as a lot of people say, we all know each other. Everyone knew each other's names and things like that, so they felt like it was a safe area. The morning of the 12th of September 2014 begins like a normal day. The kids were playing, being a bit noisy, and the mum told them to be a bit quieter because they were going to wake their grandma up. William puts on his favourite Spider-Man outfit. It's like a 2-piece. I'll show you a picture of it. And he goes to play outside in the back garden. His father, who was a businessman, went to town to try and find better signal because he had to make an important business call. And whilst he was there, he was going to carry out a few errands too. So he goes, he leaves the kids at home with their mother and grandmother. As I said, the kids were outside playing in the garden, which they often did. They loved it out there. Whenever they visited, they would go and play outside if the weather was permitting. It was like this huge open stretched out space where they could just have fun. William and his sister were playing out there, I believe, between the times of 10 and 10:25 a.m. whilst their grandmother and mother sat in the garden and watched them play. And his mother played with him. She remembers actually playing a game of tigers. So he was pretending to be a tiger. He was roaring and she was playing with him, and she actually took this photo of him in his Spider-Man outfit on the deck. And his mouth is actually open in it because he was mid-roar. I believe the grandmother went inside at some point and the mother went inside to make a quick cup of tea. She could still hear him playing the game where he was roaring away. She sees him jump off the deck and he goes sort of around the side of the house. But again, she can still hear him. He's still roaring. He's pretending to be a tiger out there. After around about 5 minutes of not hearing him roar, not hearing him play, not really hearing him say anything, she gets a little bit worried, and so she goes outside to check on him. Now you just think that they're there and they're just being a little bit quiet, but when she went outside, he wasn't there. She thinks possibly he's hiding, maybe he's playing hide and seek somewhere. So she goes outside, she's calling his name, basically telling him to come out, you know. She's getting worried, and kids can play tricks on you and things like that. So she's looking around, she can't find him. She looks inside the house. She goes inside the house and tells her mother that she can't find him, and her mother is like, what do you mean you can't find him? So anyway, they look around the house. Maybe he's gone inside at some point, maybe they have just missed each other and he's in there. They're frantically looking around the house, and not long after that, his father gets home. They tell him that they can't find William, and so he also looks around the house. He's going outside, looking in the garden, knocking on doors to see if they've seen William. He's searching all the streets. And people come out and begin to help him too. This 3-year-old little boy is missing. His parents are distraught. At first, I believe it was thought that he could have just wandered off a little bit and possibly got lost. So he's gone a little bit too far away from the house. He now doesn't know where he is. He was only 3, and so they would probably find him. The thing was as well, the kids made a game out of waiting for the father to come home. So they would often go on the driveway and wait there for him and be like, oh, there's dad, and go running up to him and all excited. So it was believed that maybe William had done that. Maybe he had gone to the driveway thinking his dad would be back soon and then possibly wandered a little bit too far. Regardless of that, everyone was pretty sure that they would find him quite quickly. And that was why initially his mother didn't ring the police. But they didn't find him, and she did ring the police. She rang the police at 10:56, and then I believe 10 minutes later they had arrived. William's mother told them that the last thing that they could remember was obviously William roaring as he ran around the side of the house, and then she couldn't hear him, so she went outside to look for him, and that he was gone. And the outfit that he was wearing was obviously his Spider-Man costume. I just want to say here as well, which I haven't mentioned, his parents' names have been kept out of the media, which is why I am referring to him as his mother and father, because I don't know the names. It's not been revealed. So I just wanted to let you know there, because I don't want you to think that I'm being rude by not calling them the names. I don't actually know the names. Police began searching for William initially in the house. They looked everywhere, and then within the vicinity with no success. Sniffer dogs were brought in to help with the search, in the hopes that they would catch scent of him, that they would find something and be able to track the direction that maybe he'd wandered off in. But they only found his scent basically around the proximity of his grandmother's property. State emergency services were called, rural fire services were called, hundreds of police officers and volunteers all came together to try and look for him. This community was looking day and night. They brought in specialist police, they brought in helicopters, they brought in motorcycles, dive teams to check the bodies of water. Everyone was doing everything that they possibly could. They went around searching all the houses on a grandmother's estate. They searched every single house, I do believe, just look for this missing boy. A special unit was even set up consisting of officers that specialised in child abductions, and this group would be called Strike Force Rosan. Police did begin to look into 2 cars that they deemed as being suspicious. I believe his mother had actually seen them, and they couldn't find a logical reason as to why these cars were even there. They were parked on the street that his grandmother lived on, and the street was actually a dead end. It was kind of a cul-de-sac, so you go down and the houses arch round and there's nowhere else to go. If you don't live on there, there's no reason unless you're turning around for you to be there. A few other people saw them, and nobody knew whose car they were, who these people were in this car. One of these cars was a white station wagon, and the other was an old grey sedan. The grey sedan drove past William's grandmother's house at around 9 AM, which was the time that the children were outside on their grandmother's driveway. Then the 4-wheel drive was seen driving down Penryn Drive at 10:30, which was of course around the time that William actually went missing. The vehicle was then spotted again speeding down Kendall Street. The police were aware of these cars, as I said, but they didn't really release any information to the public, which they do a lot. They keep a lot of information behind because they want to secure a conviction. They don't want to give too much information away because it may hinder them finding William, and so that is what they did. From what I could find, around the time that William went missing, there were actually 20 sex offenders living in that area, but of course the police interviewed them. Police at first believed that William could have been taken by an opportunist sex offender who possibly had ties to a ring. However, from what I could find, they do not believe that they have links to this ring now. There were 2 sex offenders that were persons of interest, and it was actually reported that the 2 met up that day when William went missing. It was reported that one of them actually returned home and they were drunk. They both lived in Kendall, and that day were both driving a vehicle that would match the grey sedan and the white station wagon. Now, these were interviewed, as I said, and they claimed that they were in this bush collecting scrap metal that day. They both also stated that they weren't actually friends and that they didn't have any involvement in William going missing that day. And I don't know whether they were ruled out, whether they are still persons of interest. I couldn't see that in the information. Another person that many people thought was connected to William's disappearance was a man called Bill Spenning. He was the local repairman who was actually repairing the grandmother's washing machine 4 days prior to William arriving there. This man was actually investigated for historical child sex charges, but this man posted a video in 2015 saying that he had nothing to do with William's disappearance. And although he had been home, he was not on the street the day William went missing. His house has been searched, his septic tank was drained, and nothing was found. He has since been ruled out of the investigation. Police continue to look, and there were loads of sightings of William. I think there were actually over 1,000 sightings that were actually phoned in within the first 2 years of him going missing. But from what I could find online, none of these sightings amounted to anything. There were a few boys that kind of looked like William that was phoned in, but obviously they were proven to not be him. On the 12th of September in 2016, it was announced that a $1 million reward was being put up for any information on William's whereabouts. This would be under the condition of an arrest and conviction of the perpetrator. Later, it would be added to the recovery of William as well. Police continue to look for William. They've interviewed over 1,000 people connected to William's case. The family have appeals out all over the world. Through Crime Stoppers, they have identified over 690 people that could be people of interest in William's case, and they've called in all the resources they can to help find William. In 2018, the forensics also did a large forensic search in the bushland in Kendall. The search was run 3 to 4 weeks by experts. Police do very much believe that it wasn't just somebody that blatantly full-on ran up the back garden and snatched William. Because of how the way the house was positioned and how it overlooked the garden, you couldn't actually tell whether people were there watching, and so although not impossible, you would have to be very brazen to do something like that and risk being caught. It was more thought that, as I said before, William potentially went round to the driveway waiting for his father, and then somebody saw him with ill intent. They most likely found it easy to build a rapport with him, because they could have just shouted out something like, "Hey, Spider-Man," and he's 3. That's his favourite character. That's how he's dressed. He's going to think that that's wonderful. And even though he didn't know this person, it might make him want to approach them. And then that gave them prime opportunities to grab him. It's just so horrible to think that he was literally just meters away from his mother within his grandmother's property. And he was just snatched. And it's awful to consider that. I've seen that in July 2020, a man actually made a confession to the police. This man was dying, and he said that he had picked William up and his friend from behind Kendall School, and he drove them north. He originally told a nurse that he didn't do anything wrong. All that he did was give his best mate the boy and then left, and the police are continuing to look into this lead. There's a few theories in this case. Many people believe that William was taken by an opportunist. The thing is that stranger abduction is quite extremely rare, and normally it's a family member, but obviously just because it's rare it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, of course. That brings me into the other theory that people believe was that the family was actually involved, but I'm not going to go too much into that because the police have actually ruled out the parents and that any family member was actually involved in the case, so take that as you want. Others speculate that William was actually murdered and that his remains are just buried somewhere. And at this point, it could well be the case. Obviously, we still hope that William's out there. Many children are taken and sold to families, and they are raised to be somebody that they believe they are when actually they're not. When actually the parents are these people. Like so many cases before him, he was sorry, it would be quite easy to convince him that they were his parents over the years as more time passed. And so maybe that's what happened to him. Maybe he is still out there somewhere. I really do hope that he is still out there because obviously, yes, he was taken away from his parents and that is horrific. But I just hope that he is safe and well out there somewhere, and that gives them the potential to find him one day and bring him back to the parents that miss him so much, because the other alternative is just not worth thinking about. It's just really heartbreaking to think that 1 minute he's there, he's playing in the garden in this 2-piece Spider-Man suit and he's having fun, pretending to be a tiger, and the next he was just gone, literally without a trace. And as well, poor William, he would have been so frightened when somebody took him, and he would have been wondering where his parents were and why they weren't coming for him, because he wouldn't have understood at such a young age, and that just breaks my heart completely. I've read that the police are treating this case that William is still alive until proven otherwise. And even though they don't really have very much information on this case whatsoever, they're hoping that one day they will find him alive, which is what we all hope. But yeah, that's the end of the case. I'd just like to say, if you have any suggestions you want me to look into, let me know and I'll look into them for you. give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for similar content. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of William Tyrrell. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.